Jake Paul.
Jake Paul just got brutally terminated by Mike Tyson after pulling the plug on their much-hyped fight. I know it's probably the biggest surprise you'll see today, it might even make the front page of your morning paper. But why did it all go down like this? Well, it's simple. Tyson asked Jake to change a few rules for their fight, and instead of rolling with it, Jake threw a tantrum and called the whole thing off. Now before you start thinking Tyson crossed the line, let's get one thing straight. Jake agreed to a deal that gave Tyson the power to make those changes.
Contract, big boy. Sign the contract.
No problem. Saturday, July 20th. See you there.
So it's kind of hilarious that Jake's now flipping out over something he agreed to in the first place. And let's be honest, when you mess with Iron Mike, you're bound to get knocked out of the ring literally and figuratively. So you're probably thinking where all this drama actually went down, right? I mean, you were glued to that screen during the press conference on August 18th, hanging on every word, and there was no mention of any of this craziness. But here's the kicker, those juicy bits were conveniently cut from the live broadcast. Yeah, they snipped out the most explosive moments like they were trimming a movie trailer, leaving you in the dark. So let's rewind to that press conference at Fanatics Fest. It was supposed to be your standard affair, some hype, a little trash talk, the usual pre-fight antics to get everyone riled up, but of course Jake Paul had other plans. Instead of playing his part in the promotional dance, he chose to go off script and turn the whole thing into a spectacle. I'm talking full-blown theatrics here. Jake wasn't happy with just throwing a few jabs, he was on a mission to verbally annihilate Mike Tyson. And he didn't hold back, not for a second. He went straight for Tyson's age, calling him washed up, as if that's something you say to a guy who's been a living legend since before Jake even learned to throw a punch. But he didn't stop there, because why would he? Jake had to take it up a notch by dragging Tyson's health issues into the mix like some cocky kid who thinks he can knock down a giant just by running his mouth. It was clear as day Jake wasn't just trying to sell tickets, he was going for Tyson's jugular, trying to break him mentally before they even set foot in the ring. But here's where Jake's big plan starts to backfire. See, he must have forgotten he was dealing with Mike freaking Tyson, the guy who made a career out of turning his opponents into human punching bags. Didn't even blink while Jake was running his mouth like a kid who just found his first insult. Tyson just stood there calm as a statue, soaking it all in, no comebacks, no flinching. Just that ice-cold, unreadable expression that's made grown men wish they'd taken up a different sport. It was like Tyson was just letting Jake dig his own grave, tucking away every insult for later when he could respond with something a little more physical. Jake might have thought he was winning the battle of wits, but in fact he was setting himself up for the knockout of a lifetime. Tyson's silence wasn't a defeat, it was the quiet before a storm that Jake wasn't even close to ready for.
Playing out.
Very painfully.
Now let's fast forward a bit. As Jake's rant kept rolling, you could feel the energy in the room shift. What started as a normal press event quickly turned into something way more intense. The audience could sense it too. Jake's over-the-top swagger was starting to show cracks, and then with the tiniest of smirks, Tyson casually mentioned tweaking a few rules for the fight. No big show, no dramatic pause, just a simple low-key statement that hit harder than anything Jake had managed to spit out all night. And here's where Jake really stepped in it. Running his mouth like that was the biggest mistake of his life. Maybe Tyson would have let it slide, but once those new rules came out of Tyson's mouth, they were set in stone, no going back.
In the ring with people with the same intention, but the actuality, no.
Now I bet you're dying to know what exactly Tyson said that made Jake Paul's world start crumbling. So here's the first curveball Tyson threw. He introduced a knockout-only victory rule. That's right, folks, no more sneaky technical knockouts, no more hoping for a decision win. The only way to win, you've got to knock out your opponent, plain and simple. Now think about that for a second. This rule was basically designed for Tyson. The guy built his entire legacy on delivering that one punch that sends his opponent straight to dreamland. But Jake, well, let's just say his boxing career has always had a bit of a cloud over it. There have been whispers, okay, maybe more like shouts, about how legitimate his victories really are. And now with this new rule staring him in the face, Jake was looking down the barrel of a terrifying reality. As soon as Tyson dropped that bomb, you could practically see the color drain from Jake's face. All that cocky swagger he'd been flaunting just started to crumble. This wasn't just some minor tweak, it was a direct challenge to everything Jake's so-called boxing career was built on. Suddenly, all those decision wins and TKO victories meant absolutely nothing. Tyson had just given Jake a reality check on a silver platter, and trust me, it wasn't pretty, but Tyson wasn't done yet. Oh no, he had one more twist to throw into the mix. He announced there'd be 2 extra rounds. That's right, the fight that was already going to push both men to their limits just got even tougher. Tyson was making it crystal clear this wasn't going to be some quick flashy fight, this was going to be a brutal test of endurance, a war where only the toughest would survive. For Tyson, who's gone toe-to-toe with some of the hardest hitters in history, 2 more rounds were no big deal, but for Jake, whose commitment to the sport has always been well questionable, this was nothing short of a nightmare coming true. So when Jake started whining about the new rules being illegal, it was nothing but a load of nonsense. Tyson was well within his rights to make those change, just like the contract allowed. Jake's public meltdown wasn't about what was fair, it was his last-ditch effort to back out of a fight. He suddenly knew he couldn't win the so-called illegal rules. Yeah, those were exactly what Jake had signed up for from the start. The backlash was swift, and man, it was harsh. Jake's already shaky image took another nosedive, and suddenly the narrative flipped. He wasn't the fearless fighter he'd been pretending to be, he was just a guy who bit off more than he could chew and was now trying to run from the consequences. Tyson's rule changes didn't just alter the fight, they blew Jake's cover wide open, revealing him as someone totally out of his league.
Performance of a lifetime on November 15th, and the universe will align for all of its glory and good for God.
Be in shape, be in good shape, because your health depends on it.
Hey, you're the one that wanted 8 2-minute rounds. You want to make it 10 threes? Don't talk to me about shape. Don't talk to me about shape.
Stay in shape, all right?
You want 10 threes?
Okay.
And let's be real here, Tyson did what had to be done. I mean, if he's putting in the effort, why should he waste his time on someone like Jake Paul, especially with all the whispers going around that Jake's wins might not be as legit as he wants everyone to believe? Yep, the rumors have been flying that Jake, our YouTube sensation turned wannabe boxer, has been greasing palms, bribing referees to secure those TKO wins that have been padding his record now. These are not exactly breaking news, but the timing absolutely disastrous for Jake. The press conference had already rattled him, and with all eyes on him, these rumors started to pick up some serious steam. Suddenly people were going back and scrutinizing his past fights like never before, examining every decision, every TKO with a fine tooth comb. It wasn't just about whether Jake could stand a chance against Tyson anymore. Now people were starting to wonder if Jake's whole career was nothing more than a house of cards ready to fall. The idea that Jake might have been buying his way to victory hit the boxing world right in the gut. Boxing isn't just about the fame or the money, it's about proving yourself, about raw talent, grit, and being able to take a punch and keep on swinging. That's what Tyson has always stood for, even now. So when the whispers started that Jake, with all his flash and cash, might have been sidestepping all that hard work by slipping some cash to the referees, that was scandalous to say the least. As the rumors spread like wildfire, the foundation of Jake's career started to crumble right before everyone's eyes. And then just when you think it couldn't get any worse, Jake goes and cancels the fight. It was like handing the public a golden invitation to hate on him even more. I mean, seriously, this guy has a knack for dodging instead of standing his ground, and these kinds of high-stakes, highly anticipated fights, they don't come cheap. A ton of money gets thrown into promotions, and you can't just back out for no good reason. Think about it, Tyson didn't cancel even with all his health issues. So who does Jake think he is to pull the plug like that? But let's be real. Do you honestly believe Tyson's just going to let Jake walk away after all this? This story is far from over.